Willow Creek, small, quiet, isolated, surrounded by woods, dark, ancient woods. The trees pressed close to the town like they were watching, waiting. Their branches were gnarled fingers reaching out to touch the houses. The townspeople whispered about the woods. They said the woods were haunted, that something evil lurked among the trees. They never went into the woods after dark, not if they could help it, not anymore. Sarah had just moved to Willow Creek. She didn't know about the woods. Not really. Not yet. She was curious. The woods called to her. They beckoned her with their mystery. One afternoon she decided to explore, just a little walk. She wouldn't go far. She crossed the boundary of the trees. The sunlight seemed to vanish. A shiver ran down her spine. The path was narrow and winding. The trees grew thick on either side, their branches intertwining overhead. The air grew heavy and still. The only sound was the crunching of leaves beneath Sarah's feet. She walked deeper and deeper into the woods. The shadows grew longer, stretching out like grasping claws. The sun began to set. The light turned a sickly yellow, casting long, distorted shadows. A strange feeling came over Sarah. She felt cold and watched. She stopped walking. She listened, but there was nothing but the silence. Then she felt it, a touch. Cold, clammy fingers brushed against her neck. She whirled around. There was nothing there, but the feeling lingered, cold and evil. Section 5. Whispers on the wind. She heard it then. A whisper, faint at first, then growing louder. It seemed to be coming from all around her, from the trees, from the shadows, from the very air itself. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone sent chills down her spine. It was a voice of malice, of hatred. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had to get out of the woods, now. Section 6, Flight through shadow. She turned and ran. She didn't know which way she was going. She just had to get away from the whispers. Branches whipped at her face, tearing at her clothes. She stumbled over roots, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The whispers followed her. They seemed to be getting closer, louder, more insistent. She glanced over her shoulder. She thought she saw something moving in the shadows, something dark and shapeless. Section 7. Stumbling towards safety. She ran until she couldn't run anymore. Her lungs burned, her legs screamed for mercy. She stumbled into a clearing. In the center stood a small, dilapidated cabin. It looked abandoned, but it was shelter. It was her only hope. She didn't hesitate. She ran to the cabin and threw open the door. Section 8. Haven in the woods. The cabin was dark and dusty. Cobwebs hung from the ceiling, and the air was thick with the smell of decay. But it was quiet. The whispers had stopped. Sarah leaned against the wall, her chest heaving. She was safe, for now. She took a deep breath and tried to calm her racing heart. She had to figure out what to do next. Section 9. Silence at last. The silence in the cabin was almost as unnerving as the whispers had been. It was a heavy, oppressive silence. Sarah stood in the center of the room, listening intently, but there was nothing. No sound at all. She wondered if the whispers had been real, or if they had been figments of her imagination, fueled by fear. She didn't know what to believe anymore. But one thing was for sure. She would never forget her night in the woods. Section 10. Dawn's uncertain embrace. The first rays of dawn crept through the cracks in the cabin walls, casting long, eerie shadows across the dusty floor. Sarah, huddled in a corner, watched as the light slowly chased away the darkness. The night had been long, filled with terror and the chilling whispers that seemed to emanate from the very trees themselves. Now, with the coming of day, a fragile sense of safety returned. She knew she couldn't stay in the cabin forever, but the thought of venturing back into the woods, even in the daylight, filled her with dread. As the sun rose higher, painting the sky in hues of pink and orange, Sarah made a decision. She would face her fear and find her way back to Willow Creek. Taking one last look at the seemingly peaceful cabin, she stepped out into the morning light, her heart still pounding from the memory of the whispers that haunted the woods.